Stop chasing perfection and start chasing possibilities.
Hello, Profit First entrepreneurs and thought leaders. I am so excited. We have a very special guest today. Her name is Rachel Thibodeau, and Rachel is an award-winning speaker, brand, and marketing strategist. She's also a podcast host, as well as an Amazon best-selling author. Her book is Brand Sell Profit, Slay Your Brand, Sell Like a Champ, and Profit Like a Boss. And Rachel also owns a company called the Swag Strategy Solutions. At Rachel's company, swag isn't just a name. It's actually really, really cool. And it's an acronym that stands for Strategic Women Achieve Growth. And impact-driven women, business owners, particularly founders, along with service providers, experts, and disruptors turn to swag strategy solutions when they want a breakthrough and brand awareness, as and through the distractions and doubts of their most profitable clients, aka their ideal client. SSS also supports clients with content strategy, especially through video, as well as improving their customer experience. Rachel is a powerful speaker, and she has shared stages with the likes of Robin Roberts of Good Morning America, as well as has shared it with best-selling authors, military heroes, and former Dancing with the Stars, J.R. Martinez. So please join me in welcoming Rachel Thibodeau to our platform. Hey, Rachel, how are you doing today?
Hey, Susanne, I'm good. How are you?
Very good. I'm really excited to talk to you about this topic. And this topic is brand versus branding, and also that connection between your brand and the bottom line, because who doesn't want a bigger bottom line, especially those of us that are practicing profit first, right?
Right.
So I love to get the background story. I always love to know where our guests are coming from, where they got this idea and how they started their business. So Rachel, do you mind telling us a little about yourself?
No, not at all. I spent about 15 years in corporate America. I worked for companies like JP Morgan Chase. That was my second job out of college, and more recently, Principal Financial Group. So I spent a lot of time in financial services, in sales, service, customer facing, account management, and worked with people a lot. And that, of course, I loved, but there was always this, well, maybe not always, but I would say probably the last 7 or so years of my corporate career, there was this pull to do more. And what I at first envisioned was that I would just kind of keep something on the side, if you will, which I did, off and on. I did consulting on the side. I got involved in a direct sales company on the side. Me and a few buddies of mine, like when in our late 20s, we formed a group for real estate investment. And so I did these different things. I did some speaking on the side because I figured I liked my steady paycheck. I liked the perks, or what I considered perks at the time, that came along with a corporate career. I was traveling a lot, which frankly at first was fun and actually what I prayed for. I tell people all the time, and you may have heard this, Susanne, be careful what you pray for, because I prayed for a job with travel. I wanted to travel, and then I got more than I bargained for. It was like too much travel. And so, I was I was pretty much okay until I wasn't. And until that pull to do more, it got stronger and stronger. And then, things kind of happened. The last position I had, changes in the company, major downsizing. I wasn't affected. Well, I was affected by the downsizing because my boss at the time, who hired me, she was let go. And so I had to take on a lot of her responsibility. And so, it got to a point where I really saw myself doing more, and I wasn't completely sure what that looked like. But the situation happened back in 2013. And I tell people all the time, I was not fired, but it was one of those things that I kind of felt I didn't have a choice. Like if I did stay, I'd possibly be fired because things were not good at all at that point. And so I did make the decision to leave. And as my mother said, I left my good paying, good benefits having job without a concrete plan, frankly, My only plan at that point was to start something on my own or do something on my own full time, probably in the consulting or coaching arena. But as far as having like this mapped out business plan and marketing plan and all, no, that wasn't there. And now, almost 10 years later, which is a little scary, here I am running a boutique consultancy that has certainly evolved over the last several years. And I mean, it's been adventure. It's been a lot of things, but for the most part, it's been pretty freaking cool.
I love that. And, I tell people, those millennials, I said, travel used to be fun for work. I think it was
Mm,
like 9/11 that kind of changed that when you had to start like stripping down at the
yeah,
airport, in
it
order
started to
to,
change then.
yeah, I used to enjoy it a lot, especially that early in the career when you could travel to exotic places like New York City every week. That was
Mm,
really, really fun. But I totally get it. Absolutely. You have to be careful what you pray for. Maybe, that's just part of the growth, right? Being able to try a little this and
this is
try a little
true.
that and evolve as a person. So maybe we should pray for what we want. And when we get it, and then pray for something else.
Yeah,
So let's talk about it. A lot of people that are not in the marketing space, people like myself, we think of brand and branding, we think of it kind of being the same thing, right? One or the other. Can you educate us on what that difference is between brand versus branding?
sure. And this is something I didn't really realize either until a few years ago. Because initially I use those terms interchangeably, like a number of other people. But this is the thing. And even if you look up those terms, I mean, so I didn't like just make this up. If you even look up the definition of a brand versus branding, there are different definitions. The way I really define it and think of it is the brand is the internal and branding is external. And so our brands, whether you're talking about a business brand, a personal brand, and frankly, sometimes there's a very thin line between the two, that is really what you're about. And it's actually less about you and your business or your product or service. It's more about what others think about when they think of you, when they think of your product or service. It's what they come to expect, but it's really the internal, what you're really about versus branding being what supports your brand. So branding, think website, think logo, think banners, think colors, think a pretty Instagram page. It's the external stuff and what people tend to see that, again, it's there to support your brand, but that is not the brand itself. I've heard people often really confuse the two, and they'll say, yeah, I have a brand, I've worked hard on my brand, and then they'll start talking about their website. They'll start talking about their Instagram page. And it's like, that is not quite your brand. Your brand is, what are you about? What do you want people to feel? What do you want them to experience when they experience your product, your service, you? It's really more, again, internal versus external.
I love that. And I like to think of that branding as the thing that supports the brand, right? Just
Mhm.
kind of like what you said with everything, like the colors. It's the doing of creating the brand, right? It's
Yeah.
how that is. And what is the importance of understanding that difference and really separating the two out?
I think it is really important because, like I was saying before, a number of marketers, business owners, I think by confusing the two, they do themselves a disservice, the business a disservice, their clients, potential clients, because they're so focused on the external stuff and the things that I'm not going to say doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter as much. Like your website being, looking really great and having 10 pages versus 5 pages, or, it being optimized. I mean, yes, we want our websites optimized, but none of that matters as much if when people get to your website, they don't truly understand what you do. They don't truly understand what you're offering, what is the value to them. that is what's really important. And so if you have a great website or you have a great logo, even, it's good, but that is going to be problematic if, again, people don't really understand what's in it for me. What can you do for me? What is the value proposition? So I think, yes, it is important to understand the difference.
Ooh, Rachel, that was some deep nuggets there.
I
Making
try,
sure
Suzanne.
it really was. I'm making sure that your ideal customer, right? When they go to that site, when they're looking at you, like, oh, it's a nice Instagram page, but what does she do, right?
Yes.
What makes her the right person, or him, right? The right person for me and my business. And you're right. There are so many websites out there that they speak generically. I think of ChatGPT, like that's like the hot thing right now.
Oh,
Everybody's
yeah.
using that to create copy. And at the end of the day, everybody's copy one day is going to all look the same, right?
Mm.
And it's going to be harder to really be able to know, what makes this person special, what makes them unique, and what makes them the right person for
Absolutely.
me. And being able to explain what that is so important there. What are some mistakes that you see with entrepreneurs that create these websites? I'm just curious, or Instagram pages.
I think it's not really explaining or defining your value proposition. I'm not as big of a fan of the statement, I help, just because it's used really a lot. But that's probably the simplest way of explaining what you do. I help so-and-so, how this goes. I help target audience do, whatever. When that is not clear, when you're not able to really articulate that, that can be a problem, because I've gone to people, whether it's their Instagram page, LinkedIn. LinkedIn, I spend a lot of time on LinkedIn as well. And, kind of that same thing right there in the headline. At the very top of LinkedIn, that's your opportunity to explain what you do and why it matters. Why should someone spend any of their precious time that they have reading more of your profile? There needs to be a reason for them to want to connect with you or to want to connect with you further. And so that's certainly a mistake. And even being a bit too broad in your value proposition or your benefit statement, because it's one thing to say, well, I work with small businesses. Just in the US, just in the US alone, that's about 24 million small businesses. It's a lot. And so yeah, that is a bit more targeted than just saying I work with businesses or for-profit businesses, but that's still super, super broad. Saying that you support women, that's a lot. So it really requires doing some work and niching down. And I know some people have kind of a love-hate relationship with the word niche or niching down, but it really does matter. It really can help for you to get more specific. It's just like with you, Suzanne. I think your value proposition is very clear that you are a CPA, you work with certain types of businesses, and you're working with, 7 and 8 figure businesses, or helping them to get to 7 or 8 figures. That is pretty clear. People know, or prospective clients know, what they can expect from you and the value that you bring. And so I think that is certainly a mistake. And again, just kind of focusing on the wrong things, not knowing what you really should be focused on as a business owner, a marketer, a brand builder.
Definitely. And I agree with you, Rachel. There's so many times that I see, and maybe they're just happy to work with any small business. They're like, my ideal client's a small business. I'm like, well,
that's not the case.
And I have to get a chuckle with it. I'm like, okay, we probably don't need someone that just works about small businesses at this point. We need something that's a bit more specialized with that. And so let's talk about the money, right? Because it's obviously the profit talk. We're obviously a profit first podcast, and we're all interested about the money, right? The profit. And so let's talk about that importance of building a brand so that it increases your bottom line. Let's talk about that and how brands correlate with bottom lines. And maybe we can even say which brands do better.
Yeah, I really started talking more about that very thing. And I talk about that in my book, Brand Sale Profit, kind of connecting the dots between creating this brand that we hear so much about, right? Create a brand, build a brand and branding, and not always knowing, okay, how does that really translate into the bottom line? And I mean, like a number of other people new in business and, kind of trying to figure things out early on in my entrepreneurial journey, I was there as well. I mean, it was like, okay, I know I need to create this brand, but what is that really going to do for me? And I really just started studying more, or I kind of revisited doing this because, it's something I had done somewhat in college. I was a double finance and marketing major. But then, career path I went in, I kind of got away from that, not that much, but somewhat. And so I really started paying more attention to brands, and certainly the brands that I liked, the brands that, some of my favorite brands, like Coca-Cola, Apple, really seeing, okay, what kind of makes this brand tick and what has made them successful. And some of the things I picked up on is one, they had a clear message. Not only was the message clear, the message resonated with their target market. Even if you think about Apple, for example, Apple's probably the most well-known. Well, I guess really they do have one kind of tagline, if you will. I'm thinking they may have more than one, but the one that I always think about, and I think a lot of people think about, is think different. And that was also kind of the center of, one of their biggest campaigns. This is, back in the day, this is when, Steve Jobs was still alive. But if you really think about that, I guess pun intended, think different, that really resonated with their market. And I think who continues to be Apple's market. These are people who often feel different. And even if they're not, they want to be different. They want to be seen, and different in a good way, not necessarily quote unquote weird, although, that's subjective, but they want to stand out. They're okay with standing out. They're okay with being kind of contrarian, and they are innovators. And so that has a lot to do with a great brand, your brand message, and it really resonating with your target market, with your ideal client, because the better you can communicate with them, and you can articulate that value to them, the easier it will be to then market to them and for them to resonate with the message and the marketing and for them to buy. And then they even become, as long as your product or service doesn't suck. Obviously, Apple is known to have great products, but even if your product is not as good as Apple, hopefully it is, or that's what you're shooting for. But even if it's not, if the message really resonates with your target market and they feel, again, it's about that feeling and that experience as well. They feel empowered. They feel smarter. They feel like they're doing something that will really benefit them. That is very powerful. And that is what tends to be what repeat customers, what brand loyalty is made of.
Definitely. And just like you said, Apple does that extremely well, with that, just that artistic feel. And I think that's why a lot of designers and our artists use Apple, is because of, that spark of creativity that they were really known for in the beginning of their brand. So yeah, I can definitely see that. With that standpoint, I still don't know what quite Coca-Cola is known for, other than like the fizz, but it is a very tasty Coke or drink from that standpoint. And I guess, everything we've been calling a Coke, right?
I am such a Coca-Cola fan.
I just love that initial fizz, as soon as you like pour it and it just gets into your nose, it's like, it's absolutely amazing from that standpoint. So tell me about, so as people are building a brand, and it's interesting because I think personally, and you probably will agree with me, Rachel, the brand is really what takes you to that next level, right? Especially as you're approaching seven figures. I think it really, for us, it was creating the brand presence that pushes over that limit. Because before that, we did pretty well in the government sector. We did pretty well in the private sector, but it was really just being, once we let people know what we did, that's what pushed it over to the next level. But for a lot of people, you can get to a good 750 without really building a brand, right? Just being transactional. So where does one start with building a brand and creating that awareness that people can realize, hey, this is the one for me?
I really think it should be from the beginning, and more so if you are online. If you are an online business or a pretty significant part of your business is online, I agree you can make money. You can certainly generate revenue without kind of having a brand, although I'm a little on the fence about that.
I
I
think because
push
we were an
back.
accounting firm, it was pretty easy, but
Yeah,
um,
and that's yeah,
everybody needs a tax return, every business.
that's what I'm thinking. I mean, it really can depend on, the business, the space that you're in. But I think, even more so again, if you are online, because it's tougher there. It's tougher to be noticed. It's crowded. It's noisy. There are a lot of people, a lot of businesses, a lot of brands vying for consumers' attention. And so I think if you are in the online space, this is something that you should make creating a brand a priority really from the start. And if not, being a brand strategist, I'm always going to say creating a brand is important. But, if you are really just in that mindset, hey, I need to make money, I want to make some sales, I get that. But I would say still early on, because, just like you were saying, I mean, I agree, you can get to a certain point in your business without necessarily creating a brand, devoting the time and what have you to doing that. But I think sustainability is the thing here. If you want sustainability, if you want repeat customers, because it's one thing to have customers, to have clients, but if you want repeat clients, you want really, really happy clients and the type who are telling everyone they can about you, they're sharing their great experience, I think that will come more easily with having a brand and having real relationship and connection.
Definitely. And so when one is creating a brand, what is the first step that you would recommend that they do in creating a brand?
Yeah, I really say the first step, and I tend to ask the same questions of clients. Start with yourself and ask yourself a few key questions. And one of those questions is, what do I want to be known for? It sounds kind of simple, and in a way it is, but it's also kind of profound. And it's something to really give serious thought, especially for those who are kind of multifaceted, multi-passionate. Susanne, you may know some folks like that. I probably have some of that in me, but not as much as some others I know that really enjoy doing different things and they're passionate about multiple things. But you really, especially early on, maybe at some point, you can explore other things. You can do, maybe 3 or 4 things, but not necessarily at the same time. And so I am really big on asking that question. What do I most and highlighting most want to be known for? Because you may be known for several things, but can you really be successful at all those things? Can you generate revenue and the kind of revenue you want at all those things? So ask yourself that first. What do I most want to be known for? Another question is, and I kind of touched on this earlier, what do I want people to feel? What do I want people to experience with my product, my service? Or if you are the product, what do I want them to experience after experiencing me? That is a key question. And so I think starting there, asking those kind of questions, and then really kind of assessing you, your personality, your strengths, your weaknesses. And I'm really big on getting feedback. I think not enough people in business, marketers, experts, really explore or seek out feedback enough. And when I say feedback, I mean, that's feedback, not just from your family and friends. I mean, you can perhaps start there, but especially if you have been in business, or even if maybe you've worked a job and you're looking to do something in your business that's related to your job, talk to your coworkers, talk to prospective clients or customers, and find out from them what they think about you. What do they think are your strengths? What do they experience, if they have worked with you? That is really great information, because that, really helps you can help you start to craft a brand message. What is it that people kind of are already looking to you for? What have they come to expect? I think that's just kind of building the foundation.
I love it. Now, is that information easy to attain? Is it easy to ask
Sometimes.
someone, what
Not
do
all
you
the
think of
time.
our brand? Because I wouldn't even know where to start with that. Like, especially when it comes to prospective people, where would you start with asking for that feedback?
I mean, there's several ways. You can do a survey. It can be as simple as that, a survey, a poll. It's something you could do on LinkedIn. LinkedIn has a great poll feature, but you could create your own survey or poll through, one of the forms or tools that does that. I mean, that could even be done through Typeform, or it could be done through a Google Doc. And just think about questions that you really want to know about, you want feedback on, for your existing clients, for example. And, this is something that I think some business owners do ask, or maybe they find out just in kind of casual conversation, but not all the time. What brought you to us? I mean, obviously, if you get clients from referrals, I mean, okay, you know that. But the ones that may not come from a referral, ask them, what brought you to us? What made you, reach out to us? That's a key question. And then also with existing customers, is there anything we can do better? Is there
Ooh.
anything we could change? Because what often happens, a lot of times customers are not upset necessarily about something, but they're not necessarily impressed either. They're not being wowed by brands and businesses. And, if someone else comes along, or your competitor comes along, and they do wow them, or they do impress them, well, then it's very possible they will leave. And then, you as Mr. Business Owner, Miss Business Owner, you're like, well, what happened? He's been with me for, 5 years or 10 years, and I didn't think there was a problem. Well, there may have not been a problem necessarily, but it could be better.
I get it. So it's
So,
kind
I
of
mean,
having that
those are a
conversation
few examples.
and reaching out. What could we do better? What do you like? What, when you first come on board, what made you choose us? That'll be interesting. I know when we did have a large governmental sector, one of the things we would do is after every bid, we would ask that question: why choose us? Why not choose us? And that would offer great insight for next time when
Yeah.
we would make a bid for that. And it's interesting too. I'm just thinking like, with ideal customers, and let's say a lot of new business, one of the complaints that we get is they're not attracting the right customer. They're getting people that are
Oh, yeah.
low hanging fruit, can't afford the service, that type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
What would you suggest in terms of reaching out to that ideal customer and going, what made you choose so and so? Or maybe that's the answer, right? Reaching out to them. What are you looking for? And Rachel, maybe you have some thoughts on that.
Well, I think first you have to really know who your ideal customer is, what that really looks like. And I think sometimes that's a mistake too. That's a mistake I certainly made. It goes back to sometimes being too broad, sometimes just going with the people who are coming to you. Sometimes that happens, but then you're like, this is not really the clients I want to work with, even though that's who's coming to me. But then, okay, you have to examine, well, why are you attracting those clients? Usually there's something in your marketing, in your messaging. I'll give you an example, Susanne. This is a lesson I got probably 4 to 5 years ago. And this was just a matter of me kind of listening to, some of the quote unquote gurus out there in terms of, coaches, copywriters or what have you. And, I've always been big on being memorable and being catchy, in my messaging. And so I was using the term from broke to bankable. Like I include, it's just kind of funny now.
That's that standard Instagrammable, right?
Yeah. And also, I'm a fan of alliteration. So if I can get two or three B's, C's, D, I'm all for it. But I think I named, one of my freebies that, maybe a workshop. I mean, like I use that term or different versions of that term, go from broke to bankable or broke to bankable. And I'm just thinking, it's catchy and that will, attract people who maybe they're not making the money they want. Well, that's just it. They're not making the money they want, but it also attracted people who are kind of broke because that's the terminology I was using, or who even felt broke or believed they were broke. And that can even be more powerful because the mindset, their bank account may have not necessarily said broke, but their mindset said broke. And so that is a great example. And it's like, I really started thinking about it and kind of reevaluating that. And it's like, no, when I did get it, I made a quick change because it's like messaging is really important. And, we have to be careful sometimes of not being overly catchy and, wanting to grab attention. Yes, that is important. But at the same time, the message needs to be clear. It needs to be compelling, but it also needs to, and I should say not but, and it should help attract the right client, the clients that you want to work with. So yeah, that has a lot to do with it. If you really, sit down and you think about what kind of clients you want. And, again, I think about you, if you want to work with high achievers, high powered professionals or businesses or, whatever that is, you want to work with people who are already doing well, or they're certainly on that track to doing well. Be honest about that. I've had clients who, they're almost apologetic for them wanting to work with successful people and people who are doing well, people who are making good money. And it's like, no, there's someone for them as well. But if that's not who you really want to work with, you need to first be honest about who you want to work with, really flesh out what that looks like, because you have to go beyond demographics. It goes beyond income and location and, do you have kids or not? I'm not saying that information doesn't matter, but you really have to peel back the layers more and get into psychographics. What makes this person tick? What are they thinking about when they go to sleep at night? Or maybe they're not thinking about anything. Maybe they're very peaceful. Why are they very peaceful? And why do they have the values they do? Why are they religious or maybe or not religious? These are the kind of things you really need to think about in terms of who that ideal customer is.
That was some pearls of wisdom there, Rachel, and just what you're saying, even that word, people, there's a subconscious connection, when you're talking about broke and somebody's broke, their mind is going to go, yeah, let's unbroke this. Right.
Yeah.
And they're going to be attracted to that.
Yep.
People that are successful, they know they're not broke. They can go out and get that latte. They probably can book that ticket to Paris if they really want to, but they just want to do better. They want to go next level. So let's start having that conversation about taking you next level versus staying in the broke, because that's not them. They're not relating to broke. They feel like they can do more.
And you just said something really key. And this is also what happens when you're using the wrong message or messaging. It repels the people that you may really want to attract, because just as you pointed out, and I thought about that, people who are not broke, who don't see themselves as broke, well, they'll automatically, that's not for me. No, they're
going to go in that room and be like, all these broke people in this master class, let me go ahead and leave.
Yeah,
before they see me.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
I love it. Some really, really amazing pearls of wisdom. Now, Rachel, I think we've gotten so many juicy pearls of wisdom, and definitely there's probably a whole lot more in there. I can just tell this has been such an exciting conversation. As we close down, one of the things that we love asking our guests is if you could leave our guests with one piece of advice, could be business or personal, what would that advice be?
Oh, well, I thank you for this opportunity. Something I say a lot, and especially for my ladies, I'm not going to say men are immune to this and the whole thing with perfection, but because I am a woman and I work mostly with women, I see it more with women. And so I often say, stop chasing perfection and start chasing possibilities.
I love it. Stop chasing perfection and start chasing possibilities. And that is really deep with that. And that probably is a whole nother conversation in itself. Maybe we can bring you back one day to talk about
Yeah,
that.
it can be. And I'll just quickly say, I just see that too often with women, and it actually can hinder you from, this whole perfection thing or perfectionism. And perfection is not required to be successful, and it's not required to have impact.
Absolutely not. You're absolutely correct on that one. Now, Rachel, how do our listeners find you? How do they learn more? How do they connect with you? What's the best way to get in touch with you?
Sure. My website is swagstrategy.com. The social media platforms I hang out on the most are Instagram. I'm on Instagram at rachel.theswagstrategist. LinkedIn, just there under my name. Also, we have a company page as well. Swag Strategy Solutions is on LinkedIn also. And I've been on TikTok a lot over the last year or so, still kind of new to TikTok. I've been there a little over a year. I am enjoying it, hoping it doesn't get banned. There is, I believe, a lot of potential in TikTok. And so you can also find me on TikTok at Swag Strategist. But I forewarn people a bit on TikTok. Now you may see some strategy. Well, you will see strategy and some shenanigans.
Very interesting. We're all going to run a TikTok right now to see the shenanigans.
Of course. Oh, and
Uh,
Suzanne, can I share a freebie for your
absolutely.
audience?
Absolutely.
Yeah, you guys can take advantage of a free resource. I think an amazing resource. It is a video training, and it is actually called 7 Ways That You May Be Cheating on Your Brand. It's brand adultery. So, and it's juicy as
Salacious. It
it
just sounds
sounds.
salacious.
Yeah, brand adultery is a video training, and there's some awesome information in there. So you can take advantage of that by going to bit.ly/brand cheat. That's bit.ly/brand cheat. And it's all lowercase because I think Bitly links are case sensitive. So all lowercase to grab that freebie.
So many juicy morsels there. And what I'm going to do for you guys, and if some of you guys are driving as you're listening to this podcast, is I am going to leave all of Rachel's links in the show notes. So you'll be able to click those once you're in a safe spot and you are able to pull over so that you can find out how you're cheating on your brand, watch her on TikTok, and really learn a lot and go next level in your business. Thank you so much, Rachel, for joining us today and sharing such amazing, juicy nuggets.
Thank you.
Thank you. Until next time, may the profits be with you.